It's the Marty Show. Hello, boils and ghouls, and welcome to the Marty Show. I'm your host, the Mart Keeper. Today we're going to talk about EC Comics and mainly the reprints that were published in the early 90s by Gladstone. First of all, I gotta tell you that I'm a huge EC Comics fan, mainly Tales from the Crypt and the other horror titles. I love the artwork on the covers and I love the Crypt Keeper. I found out about him by seeing the TV series in the 90s, and then I found out that there was a bunch of them. I mean, a bunch of characters acting as the hosts of these stories and telling you these stories. So along with the Crypt Keeper, we have the Old Witch and the Vault Keeper. In recent years, we've seen a bunch of books covering the history of EC Comics and also recolorized artwork using modern technology in the EC Archives editions. And here you can see a little bit what I'm talking about. On one side, the recolorized artwork, and on the other side, artwork from reprints from the 90s, which we are going to talk about today. But if ever you're just interested in the art and do not care too much about the colors, then I suggest having a look at the Fantagraphics versions of these stories, which are in black and white. But today I'm going to tell you about my preferred way to collect these comics. Between 1990 and 1991, Gladstone reprinted 4 EC Comics titles in association with EC fan and publisher Russ Cochran. 2 different EC titles per issue, and these included 6 issues of The Vault of Horror, 6 issues of Tales from the Crypt, 4 issues of Weird Science, and 2 issues of The Haunt of Fear. After 4 issues of Weird Science, Gladstone changed it to The Haunt of Fear. So this took the Haunt of Fear from The Vault of Horror and replaced it with Weird Fantasy instead. The Haunt of Fear took Weird Science as its second issue per comic. Tales from the Crypt kept crime suspense stories for its double-sized horror. As you can see here, I've got quite a few of these Gladstone issues, mainly The Haunt of Fear and The Vault of Horror. I have only one Tales from the Crypt, as they are quite a bit harder to find due to title recognition. A lot of people are familiar with Tales from the Crypt rather than the other titles. That's one of the best covers ever right here. And that's the one crime suspense stories issue that I have. And as you will see next, I also have a Two-Fisted Tales issue right here. And these are all the 90s reprints that I have. The reason why I like collecting these is that they are pretty easy to find and not too expensive either. And the other thing is, basically, I just don't really like modern coloring. There is something, I'm not sure if I can put my finger on it, but something cold or something too digital to my liking. I know they've done their best to be faithful to the original colors, but it somehow doesn't do it for me. These were comics meant to be printed on cheap paper. At least that's how I see it. And I think the artists were taking that into consideration when they were doing their work. And with these Gladstone reprints, I think we're pretty close to what they intended you to see and what they didn't intend you to see. On the other hand, I completely understand if someone would prefer the new editions rather than these. They certainly look better, paper quality is better, and the reproduction is amazing. Yet I still vastly prefer the Gladstone editions, or I might actually consider getting the Fantagraphics ones eventually. I don't mind seeing the beautiful artwork here in black and white. In fact, in some cases, it actually adds to the 1950s Twilight Zone-esque vibe of some of these stories. Although things did sometimes get gory and you want to see the blood in nice, bright red, crimson red colors. Although, probably for censorship reasons, it often ended up being black, like on this cover here. One thing to note, if you're not familiar with the whole EC Comics thing, is that they got banned in 1954 and the whole production stopped. That was probably a sad day for a lot of the kids who were reading them. On the other hand, the end of EC's science fiction, crime, and horror comics also gave birth to Mad Magazine, and a lot of the artists who worked on these comics went on to work for Mad Magazine. So we're talking about Harvey Kurtzman, Wallace Wood or Wally Wood, Al Williamson, Jack Davis, Johnny Craig, Al Feldstein, Jack Kamen, Graham Ingalls, Joe Orlando, John Severin and Mary Severin, who did the colors, the original colors. So all of them great comic book artists. Now we got to talk about what happened with these reprints. Actually, after just a few issues, Gladstone went out of business, but luckily reprints continued with Gemstone Publishing instead. And that went on for a large part of the 90s. And here's my favorite guy, the comic version of the Crypt Keeper. I drew him to use as a thumbnail image for this YouTube video. No matter what format you choose to read these comics in, I think you are in for a treat. They are great. Thanks a lot for watching and see you next time.
Thanks for watching the Marty Show.